Arizona versus Arizona State. This rivalry started with a trophy that would vanish for 50 years, hidden away like buried treasure. It began in 1899 when Arizona was still just a territory. Arizona Normal School, today's ASU, beat Arizona 11-2 and walked off with the Territorial Cup, now recognized as the oldest trophy in college football. Dusty, historic, and fiercely alive. It came to be known as the Duel in the Desert. The Arizona versus Arizona State rivalry didn't happen every year in the beginning. It was on and off, but in 1946, the schools agreed to make it an annual game, and from that year on, it's been played without interruption. The hosting alternates to keep it fair. In odd-numbered years, the game is held in Tempe, ASU's home, and in even-numbered years, it's played in Tucson, UA's home. For fans, the matchup is like a holiday. People plan around it, look forward to it all season, and it often brings either joy or heartbreak depending on who wins. Well, things got spicy in 1958 when Arizona tried to block ASU from becoming a full university. ASU's answer? A 47-0 beatdown. Then came the 1968 Ultimatum Bowl, where Arizona strong-armed the Sun Bowl committee for a guaranteed spot. ASU responded with a 30-7 stomping, and from that fallout, the Fiesta Bowl was born, a major postseason tradition, literally sprouted out of this feud. The rivalry has shifted in power over time. Arizona, UA, dominated in the early years and again in the 1980s to 90s, while Arizona State, ASU, was stronger in the 1960s to 70s. Overall, UA has a slight edge in wins, 51 to 45 to 1. Since 2009, the rivalry expanded into the Territorial Cup Series, which includes over 20 sports with football deciding ties. To top it off, the cup itself went missing for decades, only to be rediscovered in a church vault in 1980, like Indiana Jones, but with college football fans. Now it's passed back and forth every year, a relic of pride and a rivalry that's equal parts heat, history, and hilarity. Baylor versus TCU. This one is also called the Blue Bonnet Battle. Baylor versus TCU, a Texas rivalry dripping with history and springing to life again in the Big 12. This rivalry began in October 1899, when both schools were still Waco neighbors. In fact, TCU didn't move to Fort Worth until after a 1910 fire burned its campus. But by then, the crosstown clashes were already a fixture. For decades, they held court in the Southwest Conference until it disbanded in 1995, causing a 10-year pause. They rekindled the rivalry in 2006 to 2007, and with both now sharing the Big 12 stage, it's back on annual repeat and vibrant as ever. In November 2023, Baylor and TCU officially named their longtime rivalry the Blue Bonnet Battle. Leaders from both schools, including student governments and coaches, agreed on the title and introduced a trophy. This recognized it as Texas's most played college football rivalry. What makes this game gleam isn't just age, but texture. It's full of nail-biters like the 2014 shootout, where Baylor erased a 21-point fourth-quarter deficit to win 61-58, a showdown that arguably cost TCU a CFP berth, or the 2022 bazooka moment when TCU sealed a 29-28 win with a walk-off 40-yard field goal as time expired. The rivalry's tight. After 120 games, TCU leads the series 59-54-7. The fact that even staunch TV grids now recognize its pulse, Big 12 scheduling shields it as a protected annual game, shows it's more than tradition. It's an evolving, electric fixture that Texas fans live for. BYU versus Utah. Started in 1896 and supercharged for a century by proximity, identity, and bragging rights, the Holy War pits BYU against Utah with a ferocity that outlives coaches and schemes. The series' roots trace to April 6, 1896, and across 100-plus meetings Utah holds the historical edge Utah lists 62-36-4. BYU's ledger differs because it starts counting in 1922. The culture piece is real. BYU's Latter-day Saint affiliation versus Utah's public university vibe gives the rivalry its famous name and texture, even as both campuses share plenty of LDS students and alumni. There's even wider state stakes through the Beehive Boot, Utah's in-state trophy. As of 2024, the Pac-12's collapse put old neighbors back under one roof. BYU joined the Big 12 in 2023, Utah followed in 2024, and the league marked BYU-Utah as a protected annual game through at least 2027. Their first Big 12 showdown delivered pure theater. The BYU 22-21 in Salt Lake City on November 9, 2024, capped by Will Ferrell's 44-yard winner with 4 seconds left after a late rally by quarterback Jake Retzlaff. The finish stirred weeks of talk radio and message board fumes and reset the rivalry's momentum heading into 2025. In short, same neighbors, bigger stakes, and the Holy War's pulse sounds louder than ever. Kansas versus Kansas State. Kansas and Kansas State have been circling each other since 1902, meeting every year since 1911 in one of the sport's longest continuous series. The football installment carries the Governor's Cup, first presented in 1969, A debut classic, K-State won 26-22 over a KU team featuring future Hall of Famer John Riggins. Historically, KU holds the all-time lead. Tallies vary slightly by how a 1980 forfeit is counted. A reminder that the rivalry story stretches far beyond any single decade, but recent years, that's purple ink. Kansas State has ripped off a record 16 straight wins, including a 29-27 heartstopper on October 26, 2024, sealed by Chris Tennant's 51-yard field goal and a late fourth down stop. It was the quintessential Sunflower ending, loud, tense, and decided by inches. The modern Big 12 era keeps the series front and center each fall, and while K-State's run defines the current moment, the rivalry's magnetism comes from the knowledge that momentum swings, and when it does in this state, it's felt in every coffee shop from Manhattan to Lawrence. Iowa State versus Kansas State, also called the Farmageddon, a rivalry so farm-fresh that it sprouted in 1917 and claimed its spot as college football's unbroken Ironman, played every year since, all the way through 2025, making it one of the longest continuous series in the sport. From that first dust-kicking matchup on November 10th, 1917, Iowa State won 10-7, the Cyclones and Wildcats forged a back-and-forth clash. Overall, Iowa State leads the series 55-50-4 through their August 2025 showdown in Dublin. Both sides have seen stranglehold streaks. Iowa State rattled off 10 wins from 1943 to 1952, while Kansas State answered with a 10-game run during 1952 to 1953, 1994 to 2003, and again 2008 to 2017. The recent chapter? Just this August, the rivalry broke ground overseas at the Aer Lingus College Football Classic in Dublin, where number 22 Iowa State edged number 17 Kansas State 24-21, powered by quarterback Rocco Becht's 2 passing touchdowns and a running score. The unique setting added a fresh dimension and global pulse to a deeply rooted Midwestern feud. Despite its longevity, the Big 12's realignment roadmap doesn't include Farmageddon as a protected game beyond 2027, casting long-term uncertainty on its run. But for now, Farmageddon remains fertile, feeding statewide bragging rights and giving fans a yearly shot of us versus them, only this time with an Irish skyline providing the backdrop. TCU versus Texas Tech. The battle for the saddle is one of those Texas rivalries that feels like it has tumbleweeds and grit built into the story. It all started on October 30th, 1926, when TCU beat Texas Tech 28-16 in their first meeting. That one game planted the seed for a series that has stretched almost a century and rolled through 67 total clashes. From 1961 to 1970, the two teams fought for the West Texas Championship Saddle Trophy. The catch? The trophy mysteriously disappeared, and for decades it was basically a ghost of rivalry past. In 2017, though, the schools brought the saddle back, and suddenly the game carried that extra shine again. The record between them is razor thin. As of 2024, Texas Tech leads 33-31-3, which is about as close as a rivalry can get. And while the series is tight, the scorelines have sometimes been wild. Texas Tech crushed TCU 63-7 in 1985, their biggest margin of victory, while TCU clapped back in 2014 with an outrageous 82-27 win. That TCU blowout wasn't just big, it was the highest point total in any Big 12 game ever. The schools were conference mates in the Southwest Conference from 1956 to 1995, though Tech only became a full member in 1960. When the SWC folded, they drifted apart for a while, but when TCU joined the Big 12 in 2012, the annual matchup returned with full force. Since then, momentum has leaned purple. TCU has won 7 of the last 10, including a nail-biting 35-34 win in 2024. That balance of history, trophies, blowouts, and nail-biters is what makes this rivalry special. It's Texas football at its finest. Loud, competitive, and always riding with a little extra saddle heat. Baylor versus Texas Tech. Some rivalries get their spark from geography, others from championships, but this one has lasted because it's just plain stubborn. Baylor and Texas Tech first met on November 2nd, 1929, and Baylor set the tone with a 34-0 shutout. Since then, the two schools have squared off 83 times, making it one of the Big 12's longest and most consistent rivalries. The overall series has stayed close, which only adds fuel. As of October 19th, 2024, Baylor holds the slimmest of leads at 42-40-1. That margin shows how tightly these programs are tied together, with neither side able to dominate forever. Instead, the rivalry has swung in big waves. Baylor controlled the late 1940s through the early 1960s, winning 14 of 15 games in that span. Then, decades later, Texas Tech flipped the script, running off 15 straight victories between 1996 and 2010. Fans from both schools still point to those eras with either pride or painful memory. The matchup has also earned one of the funniest nicknames in college football, the Butt Bowl. On scoreboards, the abbreviations read BU versus TT, which looks like BUTT, Add in a few Texas jokes, and the nickname stuck. Some also call it the Texas Shootout, which fits given how often these teams light up the scoreboard. From 2009 to 2018, the rivalry even had a bigger stage. Many games were played at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, the home of the Dallas Cowboys. In 2009, a record 71,964 fans showed up, making it the largest crowd in the rivalry's history. Finally, the tradition is secure. The schools have met every year since 1956, first in the Border and Southwest Conferences, and now in the Big 12. Each fall, the Bears and the Red Raiders keep the fight alive, carrying nearly a century of history into every snap. Colorado versus Kansas State. Some rivalries fade with time, but Colorado versus Kansas State has been kicking up dust for more than a century. It all started on November 16, 1912, when Kansas State won the first meeting 14-6. That game lit the spark for a series that has now stretched across 67 matchups. From 1948 to 2010, the Buffaloes and Wildcats faced each other every year. First, they were neighbors in the old Big 8 conference, and later they became founding members of the Big 12. Those decades gave the rivalry rhythm and weight, making each fall matchup feel like a built-in tradition for both fan bases. When Colorado left for the Pac-12 in 2011, the series went quiet. Yet rivalries have a way of finding their way back. In July 2024, Colorado's Big 12 homecoming reignited the feud, bringing back an old conference clash that fans on both sides had been missing. On paper, Colorado still holds the advantage with a 45-21-1 series lead. The Buffs' history gives them bragging rights, but Kansas State has shown it can sting when it matters. Just look at the October 12, 2024 game in Boulder. A back-and-forth battle capped by Avery Johnson's 50-yard touchdown strike to Jace Brown with just over 2 minutes left. The Wildcats walked out with a 31-28 win, and the rivalry had its newest chapter written in bold purple ink. So what makes this rivalry fun? It's the mix of history, conference ties, and modern drama. Colorado has the long-term edge, but Kansas State's recent bite proves the story is far from finished. Every time these two line up, you're not just watching a game, you're watching more than 110 years of pride collide with no sign of slowing down. Colorado versus Utah. This Rocky Mountain rivalry dates back to October 3rd, 1903, when Colorado crushed Utah 22-0. They played regularly until 1962, after which the series lay dormant until both schools reunited in the Pac-12 in 2011. Kicking off the revived rumble in the Rockies. Through 70 total meetings, Utah holds a narrow edge in series wins, but rivalries are richer than raw numbers. After decades off the football map, both schools rejoined the Big 12 in 2024, restoring weekly fire toward greater stakes. The most recent game in November 2024 ended with Colorado atop Utah 49-24, a thunderous return to form. Historically, Colorado posted dominant runs like a 54-0 drubbing back in 1951, while Utah once reeled off 9 consecutive triumphs from 1925 to 1933. Now, as both teams carve new identities in the Big 12, the Rumble feels both renewed and reimagined. Angles on division titles and playoff relevance give every matchup fresh weight, while the shared Western terrain adds character unique to this Alpine showdown. Cincinnati versus UCF. The Cincinnati-UCF rivalry may be young, but it already feels like it has packed decades of drama into a short span. The series began in 2015 with Cincinnati blasting UCF 52-7 in the very first meeting. That lopsided start set the tone, but it didn't take long for UCF to hit back. By 2017, UCF was climbing the national ranks with quarterback Mackenzie Milton at the controls. He shredded Cincinnati's defense for 374 yards and 5 touchdowns before a storm rolled into Nippert Stadium and literally washed the rest of the game away. UCF walked off with the win, and a year later in 2018, the rivalry hit primetime. ESPN College Game Day broadcast live from UCF's campus as the Knights beat a ranked Cincinnati squad 38-13 in front of a raucous sold-out crowd at the Bounce House. That win helped push UCF toward a conference title and even a claim to a national championship by the Collie Matrix. Cincinnati got its revenge soon enough. In 2019, the Bearcats held on for a 27-24 win at home. And in 2020, they survived a shootout in Orlando, winning 36-33 to stay undefeated. The rivalry hit another peak in 2021 when number 3 Cincinnati hammered UCF 56-21 on their way to the college football playoff, a historic first for any Group of 5 program. The Big 12 era has already added fresh heat. In 2023, UCF pulled off a 28-26 upset thanks to a gutsy game-winning onside kick, marking their first ever Big 12 win. A year later in 2024, Cincinnati struck back with a 19-13 road victory. With the series tied 5-5, the balance could tip either way. It may not yet be a protected rivalry in the Big 12 schedule, but fans already know. Whenever Bearcat meets Knight, expect fireworks. Cincinnati versus West Virginia. This rivalry stretches back to 1921, with West Virginia dominating early, winning the first contest 50-0. Playing sporadic sporadically at first, the games gained consistent fire when both schools shared the Big East from 2005 to 2011, with WVU grabbing most of the better-known wins, including a punishing 38-0 shutout in 2005 and an overtime thriller that shifted tides when Cincy took 26-23 in 2008. An iconic moment came in 2009 when undefeated number 5 Cincinnati edged number 23 West Virginia 24-21, a result that vaulted them toward a Big East title and a Sugar Bowl berth. Conference realignment cooled the rivalry after WVU departed for the Big 12 in 2012, while Cincinnati joined the AAC. Fast forward to 2023, and the fire reignited as realignment brought Cincinnati back into the Big 12, making this matchup a fresh conference showdown once again. Modern times have clearly favored WVU. They've won the 2023 and 2024 renewals, regaining regional bragging rights. The rivalry isn't just historical, it's a reset. The all-time series now stands heavily in West Virginia's favor, about 18-3-1 per some sources, or 18-3-1 17-3-1, depending on record tracking. And with both schools now full Big 12 members, each clash carries weight, not just for tradition, but for recruiting, state bragging rights, and conference positioning. For fans, it's a chance to rewrite history up or extend a legacy. Houston versus Texas Tech. The Houston-Texas Tech rivalry goes back to 1951, when Houston won the very first meeting 6-0. What began as a regional clash quickly grew into one of Texas's spiciest matchups, fueled by the old Southwest Conference. From 1976 to 1995, the Cougars and Red Raiders met every year, giving fans nearly 2 decades of annual showdowns. The games have often been tight. In fact, 14 contests have been decided by 7 points or less, including a rare 10-10 tie in 1987. That close balance has always made this series unpredictable, with fans on edge until the final whistle. Some moments became instant legend. In 1976, both teams were ranked in the top 10, and Houston pulled off a 27-19 win that sent them to the Cotton Bowl. Just 2 years later, in 1978, Texas Tech shocked number 5 Houston 22-21 thanks to a gutsy 2-point conversion late in the game. Fast forward to 2009, when Houston quarterback Case Keenum ran in a game-winning touchdown with under a minute left, sealing a 29-28 thriller. The rivalry hasn't been without chaos either. In 2021, the two renewed battle at the Texas kickoff at NRG Stadium, but it was the fans who stole headlines after a brawl broke out in the stands. When Houston joined the Big 12 in 2023, the rivalry officially returned to conference play, reviving old tensions. Texas Tech has had the upper hand in recent years, winning 6 straight matchups through 2023, including a 49-28 win in Lubbock. Yet history shows momentum never lasts forever in this series. At its best, this rivalry blends close games, shocking upsets, and plenty of Texas grit. Whether in Houston or Lubbock, Cougars and Red Raiders know one thing: expect drama every single time. And that's the full rundown of the Big 12. Share this with a fellow fan, subscribe to the channel, and let's keep the Big 12 rivalry debate going down in the comments.